big star out of me. We'll make a film about a man who's sad and lonely, and all I gotta do is act naturally. Well, I'll bet you I'm gonna be a big star. Might win an Oscar, you can never tell. The movie's gonna make me a big star.
Welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. I am Noel Tillman II, and we are discussing the importance of water, of H2O.
And hydration.
Hydration, proper hydration. It's not about the taste, it's about hydrating. Isn't that right, Zane Gray?
That's absolutely correct. Drink more water, Greg.
Drink more water.
I'm
yeah.
like, 5 minutes away from blowing away in the dust.
Your body is mostly made of water.
That's right. The earth is mostly made of water. We're drawn to water. So drink water.
I love to be in water. I just don't like to drink it.
You don't like to drink it?
It doesn't taste that great.
It's not supposed to have a taste.
Supposed to, man.
It should have some kind of flavor to it.
Well,
Which is why I have this.
Brought to you
But
by
you say
Rocketman.
this doesn't count.
Right. See, this is clear. I mean, this is just clear.
And how boring is
What?
that?
You know what?
At least he's going to be hydrated. That's not.
I don't. It's okay if I'm boring. I have no problem with that whatsoever, because the only person I have to, to cheer up and engage with really is myself. So if I'm exciting to myself, that's really all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, okay. Does this count as summer health tips and things like
Yeah,
that?
it
for the
does.
summer
It
heat?
does. So
Yeah.
what's the show that you got that deals with health, for your health? Don't you have a
Well, I
show?
had that on Headline News like 25 years ago.
Do you not have a health show on this?
We've talked about it, but no, not
We need,
right
you
now.
know what? Let's do a health show, and I'll be your first
You're going to
guest.
host the guest or the host?
Co-host it.
Can you be a doctor on TV?
Yeah, I sure can. Yeah, I've got, Dr. Fahrenheit. I am
That was good.
Noel T. Manning II. That over there is Reginald Dwight beside camera one. Reginald Dwight, good to see you, man. Incredible
to be here.
songwriter. Really excited to talk about your movie today.
Yeah.
Good
It's
stuff.
all true.
It is all true. Zane Gray, you've already seen Zane. We've got Zane back from Georgia.
That's me.
Spending some time with us. We got a lot of movies to talk about today.
Do you drive up for this every week?
For the last week I did, and this week I did. So
That's great.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pay must be working. The pay scale that you've got going on here must be
I
working.
must be paying him too much.
we'll see about that.
Well, Zane did get a chance to see an early screening of a movie with me, so that was good. We're going to
Movie or the event?
Well, we're going to talk about that. That, of course, the X-Men film Dark Phoenix. Also going to give reviews of Godzilla, Ma, and then a few weeks ago we did talk about Rocket Man, but we need to mention it because we've all seen that now. So we'll spend some time talking about that and see what other time we have left. Tim Foster back there with the Tim Cam. You still here? Yeah, good to see you, man.
Can't forget Tim.
Oh,
He's
look,
got
Sundrop.
Sundrop.
That's the Cleveland County favorite. Sundrop and Cheerwine. Now, those are both made in North Carolina, right? Salisbury, isn't that right?
I don't know. Sundrop from North Carolina?
I think
didn't
so.
know that.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
Tim said it is.
I mean, Pepsi, didn't Pepsi
Pepsi,
originate?
Newbern.
Pepsi did originate in North
Pepsi
Carolina.
is in Newbern.
Yeah.
They've got the big
Cheerwine.
Cheerwine.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Cheer. I used
Oh,
to
I
love
love
Cheerwine.
Cheerwine.
I'm in
You
that.
used to drink Sundrop
I used
so
to-
often you got kidney stones.
It
Yeah.
was
we
actually
drink-
Dr. Pepper and Cheerwine. You got kidney stones, Tim? You have them today? Well, you're fighting them off?
No.
Well, just go over to your right, and to your right side. Right, no, your
What are you
right
telling
side.
them to do?
Look
I
for
can't
Elvis.
see the monitor.
thought this was a movie show.
Elvis's gnome. Okay, just rub his hat up top, and make a wish and say, "Kidney stones, be gone," and they'll be gone. That's how it
Wow.
happens. That's what. See, it's a magical gnome that you guys had no
Hey,
idea.
do you know what the best way to prevent kidney stones is, Greg? Drink water.
Drink water.
I'm
Plenty
not
of
sure
clean
which
water.
I'd rather have.
No, trust me.
Well, I've heard bad things about
You
kidney
don't.
stones,
Yeah.
but I know bad things about water.
Okay. Well,
Water will kill you, man.
Too much
health.
water.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
drown.
Health tips from the Meet Me at the Movie TV crew, and we are not registered doctors, so we have to make
Do
that
we
clear.
really need to tell them?
Little disclaimer there, a little
pretty
disclaimer there.
obvious.
Well, let's dive into this movie, Zane, and Greg didn't see this one, but he can sure chime in because
I wasn't invited.
He wasn't invited. Well, the new X-Men film, Dark Phoenix, this is the fourth in this particular franchise that was rebooted, but it was still kept early on the continuity of the early X-Men films that we remember with Jean-Luc Picard as Professor X. And, you know, I had my love-hate relationships with the early films with of course, Patrick Stewart as Professor X. But I thought that they did a really nice job when they came with the reboot, those first two films. The first one, X-Men First Class, that took you back to the 60s.
Right.
It had a little fun, did something a little different, and then also Days of Future Past, which you know, kind of had a crossover event with the original X-Men, which I thought was done really well. Was not a big fan of Apocalypse, which came out just a few years ago.
I think 3 years ago.
Not a big fan of that. Dark Phoenix has been a movie that's been delayed, rescheduled, delayed, rescheduled, delayed. Finally, it's hitting the big screen. They had an early screening set up, and you know, you go into these screenings that sometimes you never know, okay, is this a media screening or is it a screening where they've got contest winners coming in as well? Normally in the summer, you're going to see all the contest winners. They want a full house because they want the critics to get that feel of what it's like with an audience. So show up this week to this screening, walk in, there's one person sitting in there. And also there was an embargo that you couldn't release your review until the Wednesday before opening. So those are sometimes troubled signs.
Right.
So as we go into this film, you've got Jean Grey, who's one of the characters, who's one of the most powerful mutants, and if anybody's followed the X-Men storylines, you know, knows that that she's kind of kept it under control, or her powers have been contained for whatever reason. Well, they are let loose in Dark Phoenix with some deadly ramifications. Is probably an easy way to describe it. So we go in, and you want to talk anything about the story more than what I've just said?
No, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. My first reactions, well, my first thing is it was very underwhelming, which is sad because First Class and Days of Future Past were on a hot streak, and you know, Noel wasn't a big fan of Apocalypse. I was, but I understood the divisiveness of that movie, and so Dark Phoenix was, you know, it's essentially wrapping up this cast of X-Men, and you know, the way that they ended it was very lackluster, for a better word, and I'm very disappointed knowing that this is the last time we're going to see James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as these characters. And, you know, in the next couple of years they're going to get rebooted. But yeah, just the way they wrapped it up was really just, I wanted more from that.
Yeah, the acting was subpar, and you got some great talent. I mean, you've got Jessica Chastain, you've got Jennifer Lawrence in this, you've got Sophie Turner in this, you've got McAvoy, as you mentioned, Fassbender. So you've got some good talent, but I felt like that for most of it, they were just kind of, you know, showing up for work and let me punch my clock and get paid.
So we're talking poor direction.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing.
So you're not talking poor acting
But
because
that's
they
one,
can't, right? So,
that's one thing that I mentioned. Simon Kinberg, who directed this, who's been heavily involved with writing and producing, has never directed anything before. This is his first time directing something. I would have liked to have seen something before to get a sense of his style, but I mean, it was a very poorly directed movie.
Yeah, I really felt, I mean, there were times that I saw some of the characters' dialogue and some of their interactions, and I'm thinking to myself, was that the best take for that particular scene? And I felt that way several times. I'll give you some positives of it for me. The sound design was absolutely spectacular. There's an opening scene early on where you're seeing the Space Shuttle Endeavour lift off, and I felt like I was there on the launch pad. And that's a good feeling to have for this kind of film.
Kind of like First Man was on Liftoff.
Yes, exactly. The music, Hans Zimmer did the music for this. That was spectacular. I really liked some of the cinematography.
Me too.
As well. You know, with a film like this, it's heavy on effects and stunts, and I thought some of those were better than others. But the directing was just a real rough spot for me. And the story actually was, the movie itself was less than 2 hours, but I felt like they were trying to cram a lot of things into this story. And there were times that I saw the characters making choices that I thought were just stupid. I mean, there was one fight scene, and all these characters had to do was actually cross the street to really get into the battle, but instead they decided to have a fight to get across the street. And I'm like, what is that? What was that all about?
I'd say, you know, the first two acts, I think, were probably the weakest of the movie, in my opinion. But then also, when we get to the third act, we have this really cool train sequence, or action sequence on a train, and it was cool because all the X-Men got to be utilized more. And I think some of the other X-Men, I'm not going to say who, are really underutilized a lot. And I think just the ending really saved it for me in all seriousness. And so, yeah, it just, I was hoping, I was really hoping, again, for more, just a better way to send off these people, these characters.
Yeah, and you know, you come in with the baggage of superhero films, liking them or hating them, but also coming into this off of Endgame, which was such a spectacular film. It's hard not to compare the next superhero film, especially when it's a team film.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was no comparison. You know, when you look at those two side by side, I mean, to me, Avengers Endgame had all the potential to fail because there was so much going on and so much at stake to try to wrap up that particular chapter. This one had the same, but also coming on the heels of just, you know, a month later. It just didn't fulfill.
And that's funny because these X-Men movies have been around for just
Much longer.
much longer than
Yeah.
the Marvel movies have recently, since what, 99, since the first X-Men?
Yeah, going back to the late 90s, early 2000s. So I really, I'm like you, I hoped for more. It just did not fulfill. So I think unfilled potential is probably one of the easiest ways to describe
So
this.
what's next for X-Men? You mentioned a reboot?
That's maybe in the next, I'd say like 5 years or so, we'll probably, not in this upcoming phase of the MCU, but I think after this, you'll probably start seeing.
Will they be integrated more in the MCU?
I
would
think
assume
so.
so.
Yeah, I think so.
You'll see, you know, whether it's Magneto or Logan or a type of an X-Men character in the MCU somehow.
I still love the characters. I still love what the X-Men franchise did, and also love the original source material. You know, I think it's marvelous when you really go back to that original source material and find out why the X-Men existed. And they've been able to cover so many political and social aspects over the course of these films that maybe helped people to think a little more. So I give it to them for that. But this film just C+ is honestly the best that I feel I can do for this movie.
I'm just gonna go with a C.
Okay, all right. X-Men Dark Phoenix in theaters now. Well, let's talk about another kind of monster, big screen chaos and mayhem, Godzilla. Mr. Tillman, you got a chance to check out Godzilla, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw it opening night.
All right, so let's get your thoughts on Godzilla. And what do you want to share about the story that's needed?
Please don't tell me anything about this stuff.
Is there a story? It's Godzilla. It's a big, dumb, in a good way, monster movie, and there's really nothing more to it than that, I don't think. I don't think the humans are particularly interesting characters. You have Oscar nominees, Emmy winners.
Yeah, TV
And
actors
you have a
and
great
Billy Bob
cast,
Brown.
but they're not really given anything much to do except fill in the space between the monster battles, which look fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the monsters were on screen is when this film really was shining.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
The sound was great. The
right.
score was great, except I did have problems at times when the monsters were not on the screen, you had the characters sometimes interacting in small, intimate spaces, and sometimes the music felt a little too loud.
The mix was a little off,
The
I
mix was
thought.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I
you
thought
got that too.
I wonder if it's really the mixing of the film or the balance of the speakers in the theater. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know
either.
how theater audio systems work.
Yeah, but I will say that was a little distracting at times. I mean, the storyline is we now live in a world with monsters where they exist. It's no longer myth, and you get some backstory on how long they have maybe been here. And I will say that was some interesting stuff for me about trying to find out the history of some of these monsters. And of course, you've always got a villain that wants to control the monsters. There were a few twists and turns along the way with some plot character twists that maybe people didn't see coming, but I thought the casting was great. But
Yeah.
the movie was not the box office draw the opening weekend that many had hoped. But if you're looking for just dumb fun, as you like to call it, it was there for that. What other thoughts do you want to share about this movie?
It was supposed to give me spectacle, and I surely got that out of this movie. I saw it last Thursday, and just to see these titans, King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla all fight one another was great. So, yeah, that was what I was going in for, and I surely got that. I was satisfied with overall. I mean, the characters are very thin. It's silly and it's very goofy, but in terms of the spectacle, it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, and there's there were quite a few teases for the next film, which is going to be Kong and Godzilla going after each other.
Cannot wait for
So
it.
there were a lot of teases for that, and that release date is in 2020.
Yep, I think it's March.
March
Oh,
2020.
that's soon.
So it's not too far away.
No one has to be in that movie. Just King Kong and Godzilla.
Sure.
Exactly.
Just leave the people out of
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. Just
Yeah.
leave them out of it. So anyway, your rating?
B.
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 Yeah, and a B for me too. So a solid
B.
rounded around B. Tim, did you see Godzilla? Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of Godzilla, we do have a sponsor for this week's show. I don't know if you guys realize that, but the sponsor for this week's show is Monarch Breath Mints. When you have Godzilla breath, we are the alpha breath fresheners. Halitosis does make you unpopular, right there. We do appreciate this week's
You know what else
sponsor,
you know what makes, you know
Monarch Breath Mints.
You know what else makes you unpopular?
What's that?
Not drinking water.
Ah, there you go. Well, we'll take a break and we'll come back and see if we can get Greg Tillman some water right here on Meet Me at the Movies. We do have Tim back there in the Tim Cam, and we do appreciate him as always. And Elvis Nomesley, Zane Gray, and I'm Noel Manning II. Hang around. Quick intermission. We're going to come back with more movies. We'll talk about Ma and Rocket Man right after this.
Girl, Chevy, and a place of my own, but the biggest kick I ever got was through a thing called the crocodile rock. While the other kids were rocking around the clock, we were hopping and bopping to the crocodile rock. Well, crocodile rockin' no something shotgun, and your feet just can't keep still. I never knew me a better time, and I guess I never will.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, we have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.
There are oceans and rocks, places where fish swim and birds fly. History is made, art is created, things happen that should always be remembered. Heroes emerge, a woman sets people free, a man makes light, a leader steps forward. It can be a place, a feeling, a state of mind. So get up, get out there, and find your park.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I was saddened whenever somebody yelled at lock her up when Hillary was introduced, and I just thought that was out of...
That was uncalled.
Was that
She got
you,
turned.
Wayne?
No, it wasn't me, but I believe that she should be locked
Well, let's...
up.
We're at the train wreck. Wes is right, and so
That's 2 weeks in a row he said I've been right. I'm gonna have to do.
I tell you,
I'm gonna have to
West Marlins
reassess
are
a little bit
jihad
here.
to the- here.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry, I was just jabbering.
Mr. Q, huh?
I was jabbering about a colleague of Greg's,
Yeah.
Al Dunkelman.
Well, yeah.
Al Dunkelman. Maybe we need to get Al Dunkelman to write us a Meet Me the Movie theme song.
Ooh, that'd be good.
Ooh,
What do
that
you
would be
think of that?
great.
That way, whenever we load this, it won't get tagged for copyright infringement, and I have to say, no, we're not infringing on your copyright. We are not. Well, let's talk about Octavia Spencer, Oscar winner from the movie The Help, and just an amazing actress in really anything she does. There's a new movie called Ma from Blumhouse Productions, low budget. As we've talked about before with Blumhouse, you know, you can go into these Blumhouse films and know that you're going to have limited sets, limited cast, and limited budgets, and you know, it's some hit, some miss. Well, Octavia, let me just share this. She is so dang good in anything that she chooses to do, whether it's a small role, a supporting role or a lead role. She just is stellar. And in this film, Ma, she is the absolute best thing about this movie. The concept is you've got this woman who somehow ends up befriending these teenagers and giving them a place to hang out and do whatever teenagers decide they want to do when their parents aren't around. That's the storyline, and it's her basement. Only a couple rules. One of the rules is you can't leave the basement and go upstairs. Well, in the first 15 minutes when that's said, you're like, okay, the story question is what's upstairs and what's going to happen if you go upstairs. When you got a psycho like Octavia Spencer's character Ma, and she is a psycho by all intents and purposes in this movie, you stay in the basement or you just don't go to her house altogether. The movie itself, interesting kind of concept with her in the lead. The teenage cast, they did a fine job. The problem is the characters were just idiots because Ma would do some things that were a little odd and off-putting. One, for example, this doesn't give a whole lot away, but one of the teenage characters says something like, well, you know, Ma, what you really need to do is this, this, and this in this basement. And she kind of gets a little ticked off. She grabs a gun, sticks it to him, and she says, take off all your clothes. You know, like, okay, and all the friends are watching, and they're not, and the kid strips down, and she says, I'm just messing with you, there's no bullets in here. And, you know, and then that kid comes back time and time again. I'm like, okay, if you do that to me, if Greg said, take off all your clothes right now.
Trust me, I will never say that to you.
But, you know, with a gun, I probably would not come back.
Yeah.
I would probably not come back. So there are some story issues throughout this movie. There are some choices that the characters make that just teenagers would not make them. Also, in this day of posting everything everywhere and what you're doing, the fact that the parents of these kids didn't know where their kids were because they were taking pictures left and right.
Right.
It was just not believable. And she was magnificent in it. If the movie had been a better film, and like I said, I like the story concept, but the story itself just didn't pan out. If it had been a better film, she may have gotten some Oscar nomination buzz out of this. She was that good.
Wow.
She was that good. But the movie itself, really the best that I can give this is a C for Ma, which is in theaters now. Questions, thoughts, comments?
Greg, you want to go see Ma?
I think I'll pass.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
Tim.
teens in movies like that are generally stupid anyway, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, a lot of horror movies typically
they
have
are, but
very...
this one didn't have the typical horror feel to it. It was more like a psychological thriller. I mean, she was just, you did get her backstory and you got to understand why she was like she was, but it still didn't matter in the end. It was a short film. It was only like an hour and 39 minutes, but it felt much longer, and not in a good way. So, Tim, I think you want to go check out Ma. When we talked earlier, you were saying this would have been a great thing for Mother's Day if it had come out like a month earlier. Yeah, because you would have taken your mom and your sister and your brother. You don't have a sister, but Paul, he's like your mom sometimes, right? So anyway, Ma in theaters now. Stay away from it, or you can go see it. It's up to you. All right, let's talk about Rocket Man. Douglas Davidson guested here just a couple weeks ago. He gave this a solid A rating. He loved it. We don't have a lot of time to go into it, but it is a musical journey about Elton John, and it is a true form musical, so we'll let people know that right up front. It's not like the Bohemian Rhapsody biopic that music is the supporting character. This is musical is as important, and the way the songs are performed. So, Greg, you as a musician, I want to get your thoughts
That's
first.
questionable, but okay.
I want to get your thoughts first on this film.
I've always been a fan of Elton John from day one. Who's the guy that played him? I can't pronounce his name.
Aaron Edgerton.
Yeah.
He was terrific.
Yeah.
He was great. And the story, when you look at it, it fits the mold of about any type of biopic, almost to the point of being cliche. But the fact that it was all true in his case gave it a lot more heft, I think. At first, I was a little put off by the lack of chronology of the music catalog. You know, they played Crocodile Rock in 1969 instead of when it was out in 1974 or something like that. But as it went along, I saw what they were doing, and it fit perfectly. The choices made at about every turn in that film were the right ones, by the actors, by the directors, everything worked in that. I thought it was art almost.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And this is one of your favorite films of the year.
Probably as of right now, it's probably my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, it is spectacular art, and I think you've nailed it. And as someone who has always loved music, and always loved the music of Elton John, I think back to seeing him in concert. My mom took me back when I was a kid, and
I've seen him too.
The spectacular of what he did, and he was as much performance as he was about the music. And what I mean is he was a spectacle.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to see him to hear the music
Yeah.
without a doubt, but it was also, okay, what is he going to wear? What's the show going to be like? And yeah, this was an incredibly solid film, you know, and the way the songs were chosen. I thought the casting was spot on really across the board. For you, what did you like about this movie so much?
I mean, being the youngest person in the room, I grew up with Elton John, even with something like his songs from The Lion King and things of that nature, and just the humanization and the delicate nature of his character arc through the movie really moved me and kind of broke me a lot. So, yeah, I really don't want the Academy to have this go under the radar in terms of Taron Egerton's performance. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, it's really blew me away in ways that I wasn't even expecting it to do.
Yeah, and it is you talk about stereotypical story of fame and all that goes with it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you know, that is there. And you know, Douglas mentioned this, that they don't hold back the ugly. And but
And you have to credit Elton John to that.
Oh, absolutely.
He could have shut down that and easily if he
oh
wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah, and yeah, it was spectacular. I mean, it's not for everybody, because if you're expecting just a traditional biopic, that's not what this is.
Right.
This is told through the fantasy elements, but it is also told as a true form musical.
But I like
there's
how
song and dance.
how they told his story in a musical, because then
I
it
do
gets
too.
me thinking like other musicians that I would like to see told in this format.
Oh,
so.
I agree. I think it's the summer of music. I mean, we've got the movie Yesterday coming out, which I'm incredibly excited about. Later on in the summer, a film called Blinded by the Light that looks at the songs, lyrics of
Springsteen.
Springsteen, and I'm really looking forward to those two films. I do want to mention one more quick movie. This is a Netflix original, Always Be My Maybe. It's a romantic comedy. And it is absolutely wonderful. It's great writing. It's excellent acting. The chemistry between the two leads are phenomenal as well. Keanu Reeves has a cameo that has substance. I would just leave it at that. But you know, if you're looking for just a good romantic comedy, there's not a whole lot of those out there right now. Go to Netflix. Highly recommend checking that out. I'm giving that an A rating. We did not rate Rocketman. What's your rating for Rocketman?
Solid A.
A.
Yeah, solid A for me as well for Rocketman. But Always Be My Maybe also, I'm giving that an A rating. So if you're looking for something to watch at home, highly recommend that. Any final comments before we wrap the show up?
We don't have much time, but I do want to plug Deadwood, the movie that hit HBO a few days ago. If you love the series, and it's not for everyone, you'll love the movie. It's fantastic. It was 13 years in the making, but it was worth it.
Yeah, and the series was absolutely spectacular, and so I am excited about the movie. Movie quote of the week, this comes from Bernie Taupin, who was the lyricist, the guy behind Elton John's success in so many different ways. This comes from Rocketman. You were never ordinary. And I think that's just perfectly said about anybody. Nobody is ordinary. We are all spectacular and different and unique in our own ways. So there you go. Food and wisdom
For thought.
right here.
Yeah.
Drink your water.
Drink your water, Greg.
Drink it well. And make sure there are no kidney stones in it.
Kidney
next
stones
time.
in my water.
For Greg Tillman, for Zane Gray, also for Tim Foster on the Tim Cam,
Tim Foster with the
and
Sun
Elvis Nomesley and the Sun Drop. Till next time, that is a wrap.
Train.